The idea of Masonry basically created eugenics. I've gone over this many, many times. Masons build societies, they maintain societies, they determine which materials they want in the building, the structure of society, if you will, and which they want to discard, and what materials they have too much of and they can discard. With that being said, back to the documentary, or the video.
Gases, just as Alexis Carrel had said, might be good. In January 1940, and over the course of the next 18 months, they kill about 70,000 mental patients. At that point, these small facilities for gassing people are dismantled. They're sent to the east of Germany, and there they're rebuilt for, to start killing the Jews.
So after, the Jews who are helping them are probably the most guilty of any group, because they turned their back on their own people in World War II, while Hitler did eugenics on them, and then the Jews assisted the whites with their eugenic policy on everyone else, especially the blacks, who are probably the most inclined people to lash out against society's injustices. And we see that all throughout history. I'm not saying there weren't other people who stood against injustices, but we see, blacks tend to be the ones who speak out disproportionately, the most. So now going to the next, basically Georgetown Medical School, Freeman, lobotomy pioneer, transorbital lobotomies, ice picks and sledgehammers, frontal lobes, which make us humans. The frontal lobe protrudes and it makes us humans. Okay, in 15 minutes you could wipe that out. Now, for those of you who are Native Americans, first of all, I'd like to apologize to you if you felt that when I said that your cultures were new cultures and therefore you shouldn't hold on to them. I meant that you need to accept religion, the true religions, regardless of what your culture tells you to do. You should accept the truth and also keep your culture as much as you can, but worship the one true God. That is what I would recommend and what I believe. But I also would like you to consider that if you're a liberal or you support psychiatry, you are not supporting Native American people. Listen to this very carefully. Is it 49, 13, 59? I think it might be 50. Okay, hold on. Let me make sure I got the time right here. All right.
Worry about how history might have unfolded if the indigenous people in a context where you devalue who the people were before the surgery. And basically you have people saying that this self-consciousness, and you'll even hear things, people who would worry about how history might have unfolded if the indigenous people of America had won. Those sort of inventive people no longer worried about such thoughts. You'll hear that as seen as a good outcome.
So basically, doing these horrible lobotomies and things in psychiatry, their desired outcome was to get natives and indigenous peoples to not think about how the world would have been different if their people had won, and to accept white social norms. Those of you who think I'm wrong about white social norms, you're going to find out the hard way that I'm right, and even white people are going to turn away from them more and more if the good guys win. So the Jim Crow era and lynching, which happened especially from the 1890s to 1960s, occurred mainly because of eugenic principles. It was after the Civil War, quite a few years after the Civil War, you had the integration of blacks into society on some level, more than they were before, but not quite what we have today. And what we have today is not quite what it should be because of gentrification. And I'm not going to get into that in this video. I thoroughly cover it in others. So let me move on, instead of having to speak quickly like I usually do, let me just try to limit what I say and go to the next clip.
Whether they're working, are they enjoying life, are they mating with people, that sort of thing. From 1945 to 1955, if you look at first episode schizophrenia patients, more than half were working at 5 years later. You'd see a lot actually marrying. There was an early study about 2/3 of the women actually were mating up. Go look at schizophrenia patients today. People so diagnosed. The employment rate is like 10%, and the percentage of people having kids is way, way down. Okay, and there's a lot of sexual dysfunction with the drugs. The point is, in how we assess the merits of treatments today for people with psychotic disorders, schizophrenia, etc., it's not about what they can do, and it's not about whether they're enjoying life or any of those measures. It's about whether or not they have symptoms that often land them back in the hospital. Okay, that's what we measure. And I will tell you something of this.
If you listen to what he's saying, it's absolutely in line with what I've been saying for a long time. And this guy has been more vocal than I have been, you know, and perhaps his study started maybe a little bit before mine. From what I gather, you know, I don't know when his study started. He wrote a book about it 10 years before whenever this lecture was, and this video was posted in 2013. So this is probably going back to around the time I was in camp. It's probably when he was studying it, maybe before. I don't know how old he is. I don't know when he started studying it. But his conclusions are exactly in line with mine. And just the same with me, he has no reason to lie and every reason to tell the truth, because he's concerned with how he and his fellow man are being treated by psychiatry, not concerned with eugenics or making money or controlling people.
There's a recent study done by Martin Harrow. He's a University of Illinois College of Medicine. It's a long-term study. It's the only one we have that followed a group of psychotic patients from 1980 forward, 200 psychotic patients, okay? He managed to keep 145 of these patients in the study for 15 and 20 years. The purpose of this study, the reason you all funded it as American taxpayers, was to see what happened to people who went off their meds. So in this study, everybody was treated conventionally with drugs, okay? And then they're just followed for 15 years. And he ends up with 64 schizophrenia patients. 25 are off, and the remaining part remain on drugs, 39. Well, what does he report? He reports the outcomes, and it's a naturalistic study. Everybody treated with drugs, and then he just follows them. People are free to go off, etc. And basically, as I said, 25 to 64 go off, and he follows them at 2, 4.5, 7.5, 10, and 15 years. What does he find? First of all, he finds that of those off medication, more than half work. Okay? More than half, well, 40% of them become asymptomatic. They end up recovered, working, etc. The percentage that, so the recovery rate for those off medication and recovery including working half time was 40%. The percentage on medication was 5%. Okay? And all his things, on all his different outcome measures, there's a lot of outcome measures. The off medication group does markedly better in every single measurement. Okay? In his milder psychotic disorders group, it's the same thing. Okay? It's those who get off do much, much better. And the other thing here is this. So many of them are just not psychotic, okay? The symptoms pass, they go back to work, etc. How many of you have heard of that study? Did you read about it in the New York Times? No. You read about it in any magazine? Okay, why not?
It's suppressed.
It doesn't fit with the standard of care that does produce a lot of profits.
Bingo.
Announcement, etc.
Go to the next one. Okay, I want to wrap this clip up. I have one more clip to do after this, and I'm sure you people are getting kind of tired of this video, perhaps, even though this is very interesting. So let me go to I have 2 more clips to play for you. I might just let it run through to the next because they're close together. I'll just let it run through, and I'll just shut up.
Fit and unfits. We're ashamed by forced sterilization. And then my question to us as a society is, are we embracing eugenic conceptions today when we talk about chemical imbalances, etc.? Are we saying that there are normal and abnormal people? And what does that lend itself to? And also, you know where I was earlier today? And what happens to people when they get deemed abnormal and under state care? Where I was at earlier today, I was giving a talk to the Association of Lawyers who represent people who are being forcibly medicated and given forcible ECT. And they shared with me some of the court orders. Here's an example of one. One man was being ordered to have electroshock twice a week for 55 weeks. 150 forced electroshocks. Another one, 400 forced electroshocks. Not 1, not 2, 400. Others you would see drug order, there would be like Haldol, a newer drug, a benzodiazepine, 5, 6 drugs, forcibly medicated, etc.
I'm going to stop for 1 second. Now, if you were court ordered to be electroshocked 150 times a week for a mental illness that they've made up, they've voted into, that you know you don't have, wouldn't you want to kill everyone who was responsible? And then when you saw the deeper implications on your fellow man and people who think the same way as you do, could you let it go?
We also have an expansion of assisted outpatient commitment laws. You know what those are? What happens is you get released from the mental hospital, but you still don't really get your civil liberties back. And so you're allowed to be in the community, but you're forced to take drugs if you want to stay in the community. This is spreading like wildfire. These assisted outpatient. All I can say is if you're under an assisted outpatient order, you are not someone with full civil rights. Okay? Because you're being forced to take medications you may not want to take. So,
for a good reason.
Are these medical policies?
For a good reason you may not want to take it. I'm going to end this clip with this, and I'm going to go to the last clip, wrap this video up. Hopefully I kept it under an hour.
Are these social policies? And are they social policies? This is the question for you all.
Social policies.
I'm pretty sure they're not born of good science.
Social Darwinism.
But do they reflect this thing that we as a society are continuing to say that there's this line separating the fit from the unfit, the normal from the abnormal? And I think we still are embracing that same idea, and I think history's telling us it's not a good idea. So, thanks.
I'm sure some of you have noticed I'm going to take a clip from part 3, well I have, by the time you've seen this video, and I'm going to put it at the beginning, you know, from the third clip, clip 3 that is, and it is just so important that people see that part and they hear it and they realize that there's a powerful study that took, you know, it was something like 15-year study, much longer than the pharmaceutical studies, and has to do with the long-term effects of psychiatric medications. And you can cite this study as to why you do not believe you need psych meds, or that it is the proper course of action for whatever problem that society perceives that you have or that you may think that you have. One clip to play from this, and I'll wrap it up. So I have time to put that at the beginning without making it too long, hopefully.
Are defectives. But then they would also, the idea, you know, who's defective? Someone who's different from me is more likely to be seen as defective. In other words, who has different cultures, different behaviors, etc., different class. So someone who, and you can read about, say, someone's at a street corner preaching about, you know, class unfairness. Well, maybe that person is seen as deluded and now becomes seen as defective. My point is, there's not, you know, certainly if someone has a genetic thing, you know, if they have Down syndrome, that sort of thing, mental retardation was seen as a sign of being defective.
All right, so, you know, for your point of view, you notice he talks about cultures and social norms and political activism is what he's describing. You know, if you look at this video, I am a prime candidate for the targeting for eugenics, especially when you couple with the potential effect I have on society. I'm everything they hate because they are satanic eugenicists, and everything to them is backwards. Inferior is superior, and superior is inferior. Wrong is right, right is wrong. The Lord you worship and you praise and you say that's your Lord is the devil, and the one that you hate is God. Everything to them is backwards. You know, in my life I've hung out with gangsters. I have gang tattoos. I'm very aggressive. I have a great potential for change. I thoroughly disprove their idea of any kind of physical superiority. They can't beat me in a debate. I've offered $1,000 and over 3,300 videos for one key point they can disprove. I've offered $3,000 to whoever can beat me at sparring and $25 to show up. When you consider everything I'm doing and everything I'm saying, I am the ideal candidate to target for eugenics. So to think that what I am saying is not happening to me makes you very stupid, and you should exclude yourself from politics. You need to take a step back. You know, if it took this video before you woke up, or it takes you a few more years to wake up, you need to really say, you know what, I'm really far behind. I should stay out of politics, catch up, and then come back into it. That's where all you people are at who don't agree with me. Either you're playing stupid and you don't have the moral depth, the moral compass. You know, you're not an adult. You're not being an adult about things. You're not doing the right thing, and you need to separate yourself from politics until you can do the right thing. Or you are really behind and you need to educate yourself before you start arguing with people about who's right and who's wrong. Thank you. Well, the guy's name was Robert Whitaker. There's two things I wanted to touch on. You know, a little bit about the speaker, besides me, of course, the guy, you know, his clips I'm playing. His first book, Mad in America, Bad Science, Bad Medicine, and the Enduring Mistreatment of the Mentally Ill, was named by Discover Magazine as one of the best science books of 2002. And then he has other books that are named by American Library Association and, you know, other groups as, you know, good books as well. So he was named, a series he co-wrote for the Boston Globe was named a finalist for the Pulitzer Prize in 1998. So he's really done a lot of good work that people have just not taken note of, just like some of the studies he has cited, which thoroughly debunk, you know, the major key points being pushed by the pharmaceutical industry. Also, I wanted to point out that Satanism and the spiritual bottom feeders and their philosophies, you know, fallen under the category of Satanism. The main thing Satanists do is they lie for personal gain. That is the idea of Satan, the greatest liar of all this time, the great deceiver, the great adversary. He lies for personal gain. He twists things, turns them around, and so on, for personal gain. The people in charge are lying for personal gain. Satanists lie for personal gain. The worst criminals lie for personal gain. The LGBT community, gays, lie for personal gain. You know, feminists lie for personal gain. Of course, they've teamed up with psychiatry, which is going after women. A lot of women, you know, more women are on psychiatric medications than men. But yet feminists team up with mental health to the point where there's a feminist perspective in psychology which overlaps. Atheists, you have the humanist perspective of psychology which overlaps with psychiatry, just like the feminist perspective, and so on. So, and of course, I don't have to explain to you how eugenics ties into racism. So my list of the spiritual bottom feeders yet again has proven to be true. Thank you.